Hello, everybody, and welcome to our November meeting of the Blackstone Franklin Square Neighborhood Association. Glad to have everybody here tonight. Before we get started, I'm just going to say we have an addition to our agenda, which is that we're going to have the team from the Alexandra Residences project, the important project at the corner of Mass Ave and Washington Street here to give us an update on where they're at in the process. So I think what we'll do is we'll squeeze them in before the last item on the agenda, which is bike lanes. But to get started, I just wanted to start with a couple of one or two advertorials, if you will. And so Matt's going to tell us about our great annual tree and wreath sale.
Thanks, David. Yeah, our annual tree and wreath sales, that first Saturday in December, the 3rd, 9 a.m. We're encouraging people again to place orders ahead of time so we know how much to order from our supplier. Wreaths are being made now. They said it was cold enough, so we will have wreaths. We're a little scared there with global warming that they weren't making wreaths in Quebec, but turns out they're making them all of a sudden. So we'll have wreaths. Reach out to a few businesses, our local ones. If anybody has other businesses that are interested, they can always write us directly at blackstonefranklin.org. We have an email as well. And also new neighbors in the neighborhood, just encourage them to place their orders ahead of time. We'll hang wreaths on all the corners again every year, and we're going to give a little bit of money to the scholarship fund through our fundraising. They have been working hard, and we need to keep their proceeds going. So a little bit of Blackstone Franklin wreath sale and trees will go to their mission. And let us know if you have any questions. That's our poster. I posted the link in the chat. It's pretty easy to find us. We post a lot.
Anybody have any questions for Matt? We also welcome anybody who wants to volunteer on the on Saturday, December 3rd, is it?
Yes, Saturday 3rd.
If anybody's interested in helping, please let us know. It's usually a fun time.
Fueled by donuts and coffee.
Exactly. So it's remunerative as well. We were going to have an update on the South End Business Alliance holiday stroll, but I'm actually not seeing either Elizabeth or Randy as of right now. So unless they're on, I think what we'll do is we'll skip that and circle back when they arrive. So with that, let me throw it over to our board member, Ashley Watson, who's going to tell us about what's going on at the South End Library, which, as people may know, has been closed since April.
Yes, unfortunately, the library had a flooding in the basement that damaged a lot of equipment. And it was determined that the equipment's so damaged and there's so much financial it adds up. There is a committee in place now to decide if it will just need to totally rebuild the library. So in the meantime, there is a community meeting on November 29th at 6:30. As soon as we get the link, we'll send that out. We'll put that in our email. And there was also going to be a survey distributed through the community to kind of ask like what services we need from the library we would like to see in the meantime. It's likely we probably won't see the library open for another year as they decide what to do next with the building and the property, figure out the best way to renovate or rebuild.
Go ahead.
There's a committee in place and they're thinking about things. So if there's anything that you want to hear about from the Blackstone Franklin Square area, I guess you can filter it through us. I'm on the committee, or we'll kind of distribute the survey in the meeting and invite when we have it.
So one of the backdrops here, though, is even before the flood, there was long-term a plan and a question on the table as to what the future of the branch would be, right? And so I guess, so part of it is like, I guess the flood has now kind of forced that issue or kind of further complicated that issue, perhaps? Is that sort of a...
Yeah, it's like, how do we best move forward from where we're at now?
And one of the questions is whether they sort of do some repair and renovation and reopen, or alternatively, they sort of jump to phase, to the longer term plan. Is that kind of the...
Yeah.
And as of right now, that's not been determined. Is that correct?
No, there's a bigger planning committee or assessment happening.
And the immediate question is what services and whatnot can be provided in the interim, and how, and what people want, right?
Yep.
So that's the immediate question. Does anybody have any questions for Ashley or about this issue, or comments or thoughts?
It's just always been very important to us to stay close to them. I mean, they're 17 feet outside of our boundaries, but we're big fans of the library and obviously supported their outdoor programming. EBA misses them as well. I mean, they're massive to youth programs and where people go between times of day. I mean, I rode the 43 bus for 10 years, but yeah, it's weird not having the library there. It's essential to our future.
Right. Anyone else? Okay. Speaking of EBA, let me turn to our next topic, which is the future of 85 West Newton Street and the planned multi-purpose arts and cultural facility for EBA's Via Victoria housing community. So I'm going to turn it over to EBA's CEO, Vanessa, our old friend, to tell us more about what's going on with that. Vanessa?
Wonderful. Yes, thank you so much, David and everyone. Thank you for inviting us. Very excited to be here to give you an update. Here with me also is Mayra Negron Roche, who is also well known to all of you. Mayra is our Chief Operating Officer and someone who obviously is being very involved in this process as well. So I think if I can share the screen.
Yeah, we can do that. Hang on a second.
Yeah, so I can give you an overview of where we are, updates and opportunities for questions.
Okay, I just made you
Yeah.
co-host, so you should be able to share.
Okay, good. So let me try that. Give me one sec. Okay, here we go. I don't know who's calling my house phone. Sorry about that. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Let me try to put this on slide. No, what is a show? Slideshow here. Okay. So there you go, that way you can see it bigger. So again, thank you for the invitation to the meeting. We're very excited to give you this update. A couple of months ago, we got an email from you asking, how can we help? So here tonight is a little bit of a preview of an update, but also opportunities to get involved further. So just a reminder, and especially for new people in the group, but for those who have been involved, but it's been a while, as a refresher. As you know, the new building 85 West Newton Street will be the redevelopment of the site, the lot where the old Villa Victoria Center for the Arts used to be, which is a space that was familiar to all of us. As you know, it was such a important, not only landmark, but also space for community meetings and gatherings. So the new building, the proposed building, will be close to 27,000 square feet. And 4 levels, including a lower level basement, and is going to be same adjacent to O'Day Playground. The goal is to build a new casa for EBA, and we'll call it casa as the Center for Arts, Self-Determination and Activism. This new building will allow us to not only house the art space as we used to have in the old building, but also will allow us to bring all of EBA's programs under one roof so we can consolidate all of our programs. That will not only help us expand our programs to the community, but also increase the efficiency of our programs. It will allow us to expand our Latinx arts and cultural offerings indoors. Right now, we have no designated space for the arts. So we have been using, during the summer, obviously we use O'Day Playground, Plaza Residences, and other community spaces across the city. But during the warmer winter months, we are partnering with different organizations. About a month ago, we had a gallery exhibit at Cambridge College. And this Friday, we have concert, pre-holiday concert to kick off the holiday season at Roxbury Community College. But clearly, we are looking forward to create, again, a space that will allow us to have these wonderful cultural events, as well as opportunities for the neighborhood and for the whole city, for people to use for private events, but also for other arts producers and promoters to use the space to activate and to share the arts and culture. One of the things that this building also will do is will connect and enhance that connectivity with the park. As you know, the park is one of those spaces that will always, all of us are really invested in and concerned about at times. So it will allow us to connect and enhance that connectivity with O'Day. It will be, as you will see in a minute, offer a building that is transparent, visible, welcoming, that you can see what's happening inside the building, the first floors and vice versa. We hope to continue to be a good neighbor for the entire South End community, as well as for the city, and to contribute to the district with really nice, vibrant architecture. More about the building per se. So as I mentioned earlier, the total square footage of the building is going to be 26,444 square feet. The height of the building will be within the specifications for the South End. It will not be higher than the old building was. And it's really 54 feet. It only includes, there's a penthouse that we call it a penthouse, but it's the roof deck that will be, will house all the mechanical equipment for the building. So the building definitely falls within the zoning FAR. So just you walk through this space all the time. This is the site right now from the playground. Here's the site from the other side on West Newton Street. Here's the alleyway that is adjacent to the site. And here is Iba's Casa, or Center for Arts, Self-Determination and Activism. So here's the front facade of the building. Many of you have seen this before as part of community meetings that we've had with the South End Landmarks District Commission and with the Boston Planning and Development Agency. So the building, as I mentioned earlier, has 4 floors. And this is what we call the penthouse, which will be a covered area on the roof that where all the mechanical equipment will be housed. As you see, and you will see a better rendering of the first floor here, but you see a lot of glass on that first floor that will allow people, walking through the street, looking at what's happening inside the building and vice versa. The second floor will have space for our youth program, our technology center, open space for gallery, and the third and fourth floors will be additional offices for all of our programs, as well as some conference space, conference rooms, and other amenities. This is a view on West Newton coming from Washington Street. And again, as you see, a lot of glass on that first floor and second floor. Here you start seeing on this side of the building, this what will be the multi-purpose room or art space that will be the space where we will hold those events, community meetings, etc. And again, the idea of the glass overlooking the playground to create that transparency and communication between the two spaces. Because the idea is that we create, the playground is further activated by the activity. By the activity that happens in the building during the day, when people, coming in for services and staff coming in for to work, as well as opportunities for other activities throughout the evenings or weekends. Here's the same rendering at night. So it gives you a sense again of activating the street, activating the park with lights. Obviously, this is thinking that there would be an event that evening at the space or a meeting that evening at the space. So you see that activation. The building, as you may have noticed, and you see it in one of the next slides, is L-shaped. So the first 2 floors take the whole square footage of the space of the building, but the 3rd and 4th floors are L-shaped. That gives us an opportunity also to have a roof deck space here for either additional events or meetings, for our staff to have lunch or to have meetings, etc., on a nice day. And also overlooking the park to create additional eyes and engagement with the playground. So here you see it from the playground. Again, a lot of glass, a lot of transparency between the building and the public spaces. And here's more of an area view of the roof deck that I mentioned. This is the penthouse, and these are the opportunities for additional public space and interaction for the community. You see now here more at the street level, the entrance to the building, and here's the area of the glass walls on West Newton Street. And here is the rendering of the lower level, where we would have also some additional community spaces and program spaces. We intend to repurpose some of the stained glass windows from the old building in different parts of the building. And this is just an idea of how we would use some of those stained glass windows throughout the building. This is the view of the multi-purpose art space. This is completely open for, a community meeting in which you can set up tables or chairs in different arrangements overlooking at the park. Obviously, this wall will also have like velour curtains. If there's an event that will require more privacy or less light, those curtains will be drawn so that way there will be less light or more privacy for that event. Other than that, we hope that these curtains will be open for the most part. So there's a lot of light coming in, a lot of transparency. These doors will open. So the goal and hope is that some of the events that will happen at this space will spill over into the park and vice versa, that there will be an opportunity for people to come in and out when there's an event in the playground or inside, depending, of course, of the event. But that will give us that flexibility and opportunity to really activate the space even more. Here you have, the same space, but in this case, with stadium style seating, but more comfortable, theater style really seating, but it can be pushed back, like you would push back bleachers or stadium seats. So these seats will be retractable to give us, more space and opportunity. And these chairs, as you saw from the previous slide, could be arranged in different configurations. The stage will also be movable, so it will render the maximum flexibility for the use of this space for different activities or events. So just really quickly, this project, I think this is an important piece for us as a Latino-led and minority-led organization, really ensuring that the project will also create benefits for not only the neighborhood, but for the city in terms of creating a number of jobs. As you see here, we anticipate a labor force on site of about 125 workers for about 18 months when the construction begins. And we are committed to provide opportunities for minority-owned businesses and contractors and vendors to be part of this construction project. Minority-owned and women-owned businesses and contractors. An update on and I'm almost done, so we can open for a conversation. An update now, that's the building. So where are we? So we are now in the process of finalizing the permitting with the BPDA. We hope that we're going to have all the permitting finished by March. As you know, many of you have participated in advisory and community meetings with the BPDA. I think that there will be another community meeting coming up. And then we hope to have final review and approval from the BPDA by March of 2023. Once we get the approval from the BPDA, we'll go back to the Landmarks Commission in April for the final review and approval. We have had a number of advisory meetings with Landmarks throughout this process that have been actually very helpful and productive, and we have incorporated the feedback that they had given us. So all those slides that you saw earlier from the renderings integrate the feedback from the commissioners on how, for example, the cadence of the windows of the new building should communicate with the cadence of the windows of the brownstones across the street, which we actually own too, but they're very traditional South End brownstones. So how we want to make sure that this modern contemporary architecture really contributes to the architecture of district. And we will go to Landmarks in April estimated, right, once we get the final approval from BPDA. So that's all. I'm gonna stop here and open it up for questions. The one piece that is not here, but obviously is, how are we doing in terms of raising the funds for the building, the estimated cost of the building, which has increased with all the economic factors that we're facing in terms of inflation and supply chain issues, labor shortages, all that. It's estimated to be around 25 million. EBA has been pre-approved, and Maida actually was there last week at Mass Development, making a presentation to their board. Mass Development pre-approved an $18 million bond financing. So we have that, and we are in the process of the silent or quiet phase of the capital campaign. So we're meeting with donors and talking about, the building and getting commitments and pledges. Our goal is that when we get the final approval from Landmarks, we would be breaking grounds probably a month or two after. So we were thinking late spring, early summer for groundbreaking. And our goal will be to have 2 to 2.5 million committed, pledged by then. So that's where we're working on now. And then we'll go into a more public phase of the campaign once the construction begin to finish the fundraising. I'm going to stop sharing if that's okay, and then we can always bring it back. Is that okay?
Sure.
So
Perfect.
you can see everyone's faces. Okay, there we go.
Great. Well, thank you, Vanessa. I just wanted to say that and echo what's some sentiment that's in the chat, which is it looks absolutely fantastic. It's very
Thank you.
exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very, very, very excited. And I want to extend my appreciation to many of you who have come to the meetings and have lent your support in the different community meetings with Landmarks and with the BPDA. We will keep you posted when we have additional meetings, both community meetings, etc. So you can come and lend your support or join us to learn more about it. And also, as we are working our capital campaign, we'll welcome your ideas, connections, contributions, and involvement if you want to be part of our committee. We have put together a really dynamic committee. We're putting together a very dynamic honorary committee. So I'd be more than glad to talk to any one of you offline about that part of the project as well.
Great.
Mayra, anything I forgot that is worth mentioning?
No, Vanessa, you said it all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Vanessa? Okay, well, thank you, Vanessa. And it sounds like hopefully if everything goes as we hope it will, that there'll be a groundbreaking to celebrate in 6 to 9 months. So, and we would love to be there, I'm sure.
We hope so. We hope that by next summer, there will be construction activity going on. And then 18 to 20 months after, we'll be there gathering for
Okay.
ribbon cutting and celebration.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see that Randy's here now. So Randy, if you are on, if you want to give a very quick pitch and update for SEBA's holiday stroll before we move on to our final 2 items. We have Randy, or maybe she stepped away. I think maybe Randy has stepped away. So we'll come back to her one more time. But let's move on to the next item, which is a update from the team who are doing the Alexandra Residences, where they're at. And I think the short answer is that they're on the 5-yard line, and now we need to get them across the goal line. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul and Mark.
Great, thank you, David. David asked that we come here tonight just to give you a brief update rather than a full-on presentation of where we stand with the Alexandra Residences project. So as you all may recall, it was approved as a 150-room boutique hotel throughout 2019 by the BPDA, by the Zoning Board of Appeal, by the Landmarks Commission, by the Boston Civic Design Commission, by every board, commission, authority we appeared before it was approved. And then we were in the phase of preparing construction documents in the first quarter of 2020. And then of course, COVID and an absolute decimation of the hotel industry in the city of Boston and nationwide, but particularly hard hit was the hotel industry in the city of Boston. So constructing a boutique hotel in 2020 was immediately out of the question. Financing was unavailable, investors fled, and the project sort of was put on pause by the owners because none of us knew how long COVID would last and they weren't sure what they were going to do. So they just kind of, held it for a bit. And then it became clear that, the impacts of COVID were going to be long lasting, and they had to pivot to a different solution, which of course, as many others have proposed for this building, residential is the only other option. So in mid 2021, last year, we instituted a notice of project change process with the BPDA to convert the already approved building into a condominium residential building with IDP units. And so undertook that process through the last part of last year, got BPDA board approval for a 70-unit building, which includes 10 IDP units. We then advanced to the Zoning Board of Appeal process, which resulted in the ZBA approving us in July of this year unanimously, granting the various variances needed for the project. And we are now in the final stage of the approval process, which is the South End Landmarks Commission, which incidentally approved the exact very same proposal that is now before them. At the beginning of our notice of project change process, the BPDA was quite clear in instructing my clients to, don't change anything other than what's going on inside the building. leave the design, which was the subject of a 2-year process, exactly the same. So that's what's been done. So everything you remember from 3 years ago is exactly what is the proposal today. It's just that what's going on inside, instead of a hotel, it's going to be a spectacular opportunity for 70 individuals and families to call it home, including 10 IDP affordable units, which will be available for home ownership as well. So we're really excited about that part of the proposal. Landmarks is giving us a little bit of resistance because of the change of use, but we think we will persuade them of the merits of the project, of the desire of the neighborhood for the project. We'd like to thank everyone who has sent in a letter of support. We have literally received hundreds of them, which is super helpful. We have the support of elected officials, which is super helpful. We have the support of neighborhood associations, which is super helpful. So we have one subcommittee meeting with a few members of Landmarks next week, and then we'll have our final design review hearing at their December hearing, at which point we truly hope we'll have the final approvals necessary so that the project can then once again advance to the full set of construction drawing stage and break ground at some point in the first half of next year. So that's where we're at. We have slides and images. Maybe Pop, just pull up an image to remind people what it's going to look like. And then we'll have,
Sure.
Let me give you screen share.
okay, give it to Pop. He's got the,
Right, I just did.
So yeah, let me quickly flip through to the renderings here. So just as a refresher, here's the overall design of the building. Kind of zooming in, this is the existing Alexandra Hotel with the new addition in the rear. So as Mark mentioned, really the team's committed to full restoration of the facade as was presented back in 2019. All the details, the same historical preservationist Lisa Howe from BCA is a part of our team and is presenting in front of the Landmarks Commission with us. So still committed to full restoration as was presented previously in 2019.
and with the street level activation on the left-hand side of the image is the residential lobby. On the right-hand side, historic structure will be commercial space of some sort, retail, restaurant, cafe, something very lively and active. And you can see that stretch of Washington Street has an enormously wide sidewalk, which presents a terrific opportunity for a cafe, which you've depicted there in the front. When it was proposed as a hotel, consideration was being made to move the Silver Line bus stop away from the front of the building to create a loading and unloading zone for a busy hotel. We don't need that anymore, so the bus stop stays where it is, and we just take advantage of this wide sidewalk for some, street level activity outside the commercial space, and then this vibrant glass residential lobby and what will be the infill portion of the building on the smaller parcel of land where once stood a brick row house that was lost to neglect many years ago. So that's it in a nutshell, and we just wanted to give you an update, and again, thank everyone for your support. It matters a lot to those who are making these decisions. And like we said, we've had, pretty much batting 1,000 so far, and we hope to get that one last approval very soon. So I'll stop there and happy to take any comments or questions.
Mark and
and on
Paul, can we just click through 14 and 17 there for 2 seconds? They
Yeah,
were
of course.
impressive. Just those angles, even if you go 10 seconds on each,
Yeah,
just to see those Mass Ave angles, please.
Sure.
14, yep.
Wow.
So actually, the exterior, as Mark mentioned, is unchanged. The only thing that really changed that would be recognizable from the exterior with the hotel to residential changes, actually, because of the interior reconfiguration, one of the cores moved to the actual core of the building from the outside of the building. So that actually allows for more transparent glazing versus like a solid area on the exterior.
And then 17, you said?
17 is the close-up. Which angle did you want to see?
Either are fine, just those ones there looked very interesting
Okay.
from small size.
Yeah, this is, there was a lot of study and design done, by CBT as a part of the 2019 kind of process. And even the little addition of the building kind of takes cues from the existing historical facade. So this little updated, it says hotel entrance, but really we're reusing basically all the same documents from the 2019 because the design hasn't changed. But this new little modern addition takes cues from the existing kind of Alexandra hotel facade in a updated fashion.
And it takes cues actually from the facade of the Ivory Bean building, which was there. CBT studied the rhythm of that building and sort of contemporized it in their expression of that part of the new structure. So history is not lost there. And the original bricks from the original Ivory Bean are apparently in safekeeping nearby. The Church of Scientology actually warehoused them. So there's a possibility that at least some even of the materiality will be able to come back in some small form or fashion to remember the past.
Anybody else have questions or comments? I have a question or a comment. Well, go ahead. Jonathan, go ahead.
Oh, that wasn't me, David. I think that was somebody else.
Oh, okay.
But I do
Whoever
have,
else that was, go ahead.
No, guess not.
Well,
I'm not
I'll
hearing
make-
anyways.
sure, I'll
You
make
you
a
go,
comment.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm on a plane, so apologies, guys. Really wanted to dial in for this. I just want to say that as a resident, I've been part of this journey with you guys for 3 years. I know it's been going on longer than that. And I just want to publicly commend the efforts of your team, Mark, to involve the community. I want to commend your stamina to stick with this project. I know many folks that have been in the South End for a lot longer than me have seen many promises come and go. And you guys are at the finish line. This project addresses the much needed housing crisis that we have in the city. It'll activate that street corner. And as a community, we need to stand behind you guys on December 2nd to help get this thing over the finish line. But I just want to say as a resident, it's been an incredible process to witness your transparency, your stamina, your commitment to getting it done. No project is perfect, but this is a very good project for the South End, for that corner. And it's going to be great when it gets through. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks for your help every step of the way.
And I should just clarify this landmarks commission meeting is on December 6th, not December 2nd.
Let me
I know-
close by just asking it. Go ahead, and then I'll.
Yeah, no,
I know somebody in the chat asked a question. Do it have an image of the view of it if you were coming down Washington from South End towards Milnia Cass? This is probably the best image that represents that. This is basically at the corner of Mass Ave and Washington Street. So
Got it. Thanks.
Let me, before we close this item out, let me just ask you to address one thing. There's a lengthy discussion on the South End Facebook page over the last few days, as you guys probably saw, that was sparked by somebody who I don't think has all the facts, but they were speculating that, nothing was ever going to happen. It had been sitting there, nothing had been done for a year yet, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not true, obviously, with respect to how actively you've been pursuing the project and the process, et cetera, et cetera. But there was a thought there that somehow this is never going to happen. And what I'm hearing from you is that provided you get your South End Landmarks District approval, which you hope to get in December, your intention is to move to the construction drawings, as you said, and then have a shovel in the ground in the first part of next year. Is that correct?
absolutely. I mean, I
Okay.
can see how
Yeah, that's-
the uninformed of the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody's expected to know about every development project that's out there, but I can see why walking by, it's easy to think, gee, nothing's ever going to happen, because it's looked that way for 50 years, right? But I can tell you that my clients and their investors and their commitment to this is rock solid, and it's not easy, but they are so committed to this and are so wanting to do this and build this and save this building. And that's, Scout's honor.
That's fantastic news. Great.
Important to act fast before something bad happens to the building, like it did with
Yeah.
the Ivory Beam.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Demolition by neglect is this horrible concept that is exactly what it sounds. And the good news, as Lisa Howe, our preservation consultant, has reported to the Landmarks Commission, is that she has recently re-examined the building very closely. And since 3 years ago, when we initiated the process, there's some minor deterioration of the masonry and the facade, but on the whole, Lisa has not seen anything that alarms her in terms of deterioration. So that's good news, but the building still has, significant challenges because of fires in the 70s, because of a giant hole in the roof, because of, freeze thaw cycles. So it can't take much more neglect. So that's our job, is to
And
save.
the building is subject to constant vandalism at the street level. That's very hard to control. Graffiti, postering. So
Right.
all of which we, will work very hard to clean up. But, we want to bring the appropriate restoration and preservation specialists to do that work. It's not just a matter of scrubbing it off,
Okay.
Every-
Jennifer, I see your hand is raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah,
A comment?
I
Go ahead.
do. I do. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm delighted that this beautiful building is going to finally get to be something. If I heard you right, there are going to be 70 units and 10 of them are going to be affordable housing or less than market rate. So that's about 14%, something like that. Is that sort of at the standard level of what's required by Boston now?
13 is the requirement, and so we slightly exceed, but again, the challenges of this project financially are many. The cost alone of preserving the facade portion of the Alexandra is around about $8 million by our best construction estimates at this point. And that just presents a unique challenge for this construction project that, ground up new construction does not face. So yeah, but we think the 10 home ownership opportunities are fantastic. We talk a lot about equity and building wealth and home ownership. Well, what better opportunity for 10 families or individuals who will get to buy a unit in this building, in this structure, and call it home.
Yep. And for the other 60, how affordable will they be? Will it be sort of whatever the market rate is? And
yeah, whatever the market
that's-
rate is, but the other component of this is that a portion of the units, both affordable and market rate, are designed under the city's compact unit policy. So smaller, with more common amenity spaces for the residents, but smaller units means, smaller square footage, and we sell real estate on a price per square foot basis. So smaller units have smaller price tags relative to, larger units. So we think that's a benefit as well.
And the range of sizes are what?
What's that number, Pav?
It's anywhere from, our smallest compact studio is right around 400 square feet to above, 1,000 to 1,100 for the 2 bedrooms.
So 2 bedrooms is the largest.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
a fairly good mix of, compact studios, compact
Yeah,
one
actually,
bedrooms. Yeah,
I'm on the wrong screen. So this is
There we
the
Right.
exact breakdown. So it's a pretty even breakdown of the unit types, 11% studios, 46 one beds. There's also a 1 bed plus. So it's a 1 bedroom with a den, and then 27% 2 bedrooms. And then the IDP kind of distribution follows, that unit distribution as best as it can.
And so their condo fees also would be adjusted according to size, right? Or are these, or is this rent?
No, even better. Condo fees for affordable units are not based on size. Condo fees for affordable units are based upon the deed restricted lower price point of that condo unit. So it's a fix that was made some years ago when that fix was not originally made for IDP units in larger condo buildings, which created a problem for IDP unit owners because their condo fees were not also set at a lower point. But now you have to have your condo documents approved by the BPDA and the IDP staff such that IDP units condo fees have to reflect not the size of the unit as in market size, but the lower price point. For example, let's say, a typical 1 bedroom apartment being sold at market rate would be $700,000. That same unit, an IDP, would be $210,000. So the condo fee will be tied to the 210 as opposed to square footage, even though the units are the same square footage. Just someone is paying 210 and someone's paying 700. So that's how the condo fee works for IDP units these days.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Anyone else before we? Okay, well, thank you, Mark and Bob, for the update. And it seems like if anyone wants to support this project or just offer an opinion, the thing to do is to write to the Landmarks Commission in advance of the hearing, which is December 6th, correct?
Yes,
that's correct.
Perfect. Okay.
Thanks so much for having us, and thank you for all the support.
Thank you.
Indeed. Have a good night.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
So the last item on our agenda is John Monticelli, who is an engineer with the Boston Transportation Department, is going to tell us about the bike lane proposal. If he's still on, did we just lose? Oh, hi, John.
No, I'm here. Hey there. Hey, Dave.
Sorry, I
No,
lost
no.
you there on the transition. It's my fault. So thank you for coming. And so you're going to tell us about Mayor Wu's bike lane expansion initiative as it pertains to Albany Street.
Albany Street. Yep.
Great.
So
Do you want to share the screen or?
Yes, please. Yeah, I have a presentation I can throw up and go through. Awesome. Thank you. So I will throw this presentation up. The only downside to some of this is that I don't see the chat and a handful of the hands that might be raised. So I'll go through a bunch of these slides. They're fairly high level. Again, we are just beginning the kind of layout and the process for all of this. The corridor is a sizable length from Northampton to Frontage Road or so. So I'll run through some of the high level things again, and then at the end, I can click back and forth through any of the slides and we can answer some of the questions when I have a better sense of seeing people and their faces. So thank you for having me. Again, my name is John Monticelli. I'm one of the engineers on the active transportation team here in the transportation department. So we wanted to come on out. Again, just a bit, if you've clicked through or scrolled through the story map that is associated with the mayor's press release or announcement, committing to an expansion of our current comfortable or low stress bike facilities throughout the city, making a more connected network so that it's more functional and brings people to and from places that matter to them and enrich their lives so that they can make choices on their mobility and perhaps choose to take fewer vehicle trips, thus resulting in somewhat less traffic for everyone. So net goals, net positives here. So today's bike network includes about 59 miles of off-street paths, and then additionally 17.5 miles of separated bike lanes, generally on street, Some of them are constructed into sidewalk level or frontage zones. However, as many people know, even downtown, many of the bike lanes do have a disjoint or kind of discontinuance to them on any given trip. Most people can experience you bike in a variety of different contexts, whether it's a separated path, a tree-lined boulevard, or you're directly next to parked cars, and then those facilities can drop occasionally at any minute. Whether it's the development that we had worked with mitigation, or it's a master plan that had a limit. So there are a handful of these borders that we're trying to knit together to make that safe facility continuous. Again, these gaps are mostly physical, but they do translate directly into mental barriers for people to either pick up cycling as a mode of transportation, recreation, physical activity, and personal empowerment. But we know that as we improve those facilities and we make them safer and lower stress, that the range of individuals who will pick up and use those facilities expands greatly. So you no longer see just the lycra clad zooming cyclists. As we often recognize, we would almost never accept this condition where a road would just end, with a barrier, or a bus network, a bus line would terminate in a caution sign. So this is something that we're trying to resolve in modal equity here. Again, mayor's announcement over the next year. Generally a calendar year here. We're trying to work within the 2023 window, especially within the construction season, which is even smaller than the calendar year. We're working with the residents across many neighborhoods in the city to redesign and install new bike lanes. The project layout and the ambition is just over 9 miles. I think it's 9.2 or something like that. So you'll see on the right-hand side, the blue is existing facilities. The black lines are projects that are either in the process of being implemented or working through the construction phases. The orange, the deep orange there, are properly separated facilities where there is some type of material or space to allocate the dimension for people to bike. And then the lighter kind of orange or yellowish color on your screen there, those are more of neighborhood connections, less physical elements to them, but identifying areas where streets are accommodating with lower speeds and slightly lower volumes. So again, their link is down there, boston.gov/bike-lanes. And again, there's a really cool story map that you can scroll through and you can kind of toggle and play with the elements there just to familiarize yourself. And you're welcome, of course, to reach out to anyone on our team here. We're happy to answer a bunch of questions and continue to engage you with other city services as we move forward with these. So as I said, there are a handful of different variety or different types of facilities that we can consider when we're kind of laying out bike networks or places that people feel more comfortable walking and biking and rolling, especially with elders in their family or children. So from left to right, you'll see a quick build, which you probably see more often of the city here is striping on the ground, flex posts or some type of quickly implemented material to separate a space. Just to the right of that, you see a full build. This example, I think, is Summer Street in the Fort Point channel. So it's taking advantage of either a public works corridor project or a big development or some type of neighborhood investment commitment that we can kind of look at the whole corridor, putting brand new trees, street lighting, permeable surfaces to increase our climate resiliency, all kinds of things like that go into the full build. Moving over a little bit more is the controllable bike lane. And that's what I was talking about, kind of analyzing a street that's more of a neighborhood street that has a volume and a speed threshold that is low and kind of comfortable within the guidelines, so that we can just use some markings and then people can navigate those spaces with just the marking, the striping and the pavement markings on the ground. And then to the furthest right part there, You'll see a handful of white lines, which we typically don't do anymore, but that is a speed hump essentially. So identifying through a handful of programs to look at zones in our residential neighborhoods and implement elements to those to traffic calm. So again, this probably will be a little less relevant in that one to Albany Street, but we are working to expand and roll out to more neighborhoods those traffic calming elements, because we know that people should be able to feel the quality of life in their neighborhoods, and whether it's cut through traffic or general vehicle speeding, we know that it's a quality of life issue. So this is a very busy slide. Again, this is taken right from the story map online. This just lays out all of the pieces and the different projects that we have, all of the plates that we're juggling right now, and some kind of either sketches or renderings. Again, I won't idle on this screen too long, because I'm going to provide you with that website at the end so you can take your time and zoom in and zoom out on things, but just shows you the kind of layout of the city and where those projects are, and how those are being attended to. So specifically Albany Street here. So as I said, the limits that we're looking at right now are just past Northampton on the southwest, all the way up through the BMC campus, continuing through the lower South End area, through several of the parcels down that are nooked between I-93 and or the Mass Ave connector, and then extending up past Union Park to tie into the frontage road kind of intersection where the South Bay Harbor Trail was finished and connected into the Albany Street corridor. Speaking of, so just to show you here on the left side, this is generally existing conditions. From the left is the shared use path coming underneath I-93 and some of the ramps connecting through the middle of the image, and then over to the right, we have the widened crossing for Albany Street. And this is essentially where we would tie the bike facility into here. We wouldn't be exploring taking it up further Albany Street proper, through the back of the ink block and things like that. It would be a connection right here into the South Bay Harbor Trail, and then connecting down towards Mass Ave. Right-hand side is a bit more of an architectural or landscaping kind of layout from the project there, the Harbor Trail project. Just shows you in aerial form the layout of the shared use path, and then the separation for peds and bikes once you get to the Albany Street area. In addition to the South Bay Harbor Trail, this Albany Street corridor connects a handful of other projects that we either are working on currently or have kind of been making slow progress towards improvements with. One of those is the Lower Roxbury Transportation Action Plan. At Northampton Street, we are proposing a handful of these lower stress contraflow bike lanes, as well as standard striped bike lanes, and then several other intersection safety improvements, whether it's building curb extensions and fixing our ramps, which are in a standard of disarray, implementing some green infrastructure and things like that. So you can take a look again. Another one of the projects, boston.gov/lower-Roxbury. And you can take a look at some of that targeted intersection work and the corridor treatments. Another one is the Milnia Cass Boulevard. Again, we know that has had a storied life as a project so far, but very recently the path was repaved. So it's a much more comfortable, brand new, shiny, very inviting kind of place for people to bike along that corridor connection. And this would tie in whether it's the Albany Street extension piece or it's down at the Crosstown Drive over near the hotel there. Speaking of Crosstown Drive and Milnia Cass and Mass Ave, the two-way cycle track on Mass Ave between Milnia Cass and Columbia Road is in a slow process of implementation, but it is with our construction team at Public Works to be rolled out. So again, this would connect, the Albany Street project would connect very well with this. So being able to bring folks from the South End or even South Boston coming underneath the highway, providing a direct connection further into Dorchester as well. So As far as scope and the things that we are beginning this process to consider, Albany Street in a very rough kind of our landscapey sketch on the right-hand side there is just used for our concept and discussion purposes. But right now, again, we're talking about quick build or kind of an interim installation for the corridor, looking at separated bike lanes. Again, improving all of our curb ramps and crossings, both across Albany and across side streets. Whether those are maintaining a standard ramp and making sure that they're actually compliant, ADA compliant. We're also performing we're collecting full engineering survey for the corridor to evaluate if there's opportunities for us to raise those side street crossings. So one, making them by default accessible because they're sidewalk grades, they're a flat crossing, removing the need for pedestrians, whether they're on foot or in a mobility device, to go down into the street and then back up, controlling the speeds and severity of the conflicts between drivers and pedestrians on those crosswalks, as well as keeping folks out of potential rain or snow melt. Pretty important in certain parts of the South End that become slight ponds. So. Again, just to reiterate, I know that I've shown you graphics and it looks like we're deep in the weeds on these things. We are just starting this out. Again, we are just collecting the engineering survey. We have just only recently done the traffic count collection. We're gathering all this information so that over winter we can keep coordinating internally as well as with, people in the neighborhoods such as yourself and your group here. We know that there's a lot going on this corridor and in the region of this corridor, whether it's BPDA or small developments, whether it's trying to make sure that those developments, their mitigation is honored, and then also planning for what that future full corridor reconstruction looks like, because we know that that's still in the works. So again, this is not the final image that you'll see of this corridor. The future will hold things like improved, again, climate resiliency, adding trees where there are gaps in the tree canopy along here, upgrading the lighting and things like that. So that is all still to come. So please don't think that, whatever we work through in this project will be the last word on this street here. Again, we also acknowledge that there are parts of this corridor that are very easy to consider design for, and then there are parts that are very complicated, such as the BMC area. We know that the curbside activity, the traffic activity, the hospital's needs for access and movement through the campus, all those things are going to be taken into consideration and talked about at the same time. So, again, just to iterate, we need you as the residents, as the employees, as the patrons of this area. We need you to get all this right? So what you can expect moving forward, we have multiple opportunities such as this, as well as we'll be hosting some singular events specifically for this corridor in the South End. The website for this project also has links to sign up for drop-in office hours, usually held on Wednesday afternoons, allows like 15-minute blocks for you to pop on and chat with us directly, ask some questions and raise some concerns and hear more about things in a one-on-one setting. So it's been really popular. It's very effective for us because we get to write down detailed notes and things like that. So check that out. Multilingual communications, again, whatever we have for a public event or some type of engagement opportunity, we will be identifying predominant language needs or multilingual communications opportunities, and then updates via email, occasional drop-ins to your venues here for neighborhood meetings, postcards that are mailed out, and then also flyering. So we'll be doing either direct flyering into mailboxes on vehicles that we are parked along the street, just trying to double down on the ways that we can share these messages and open opportunities for people to know what's going on and to weigh in as we move through. Ooh, a text heavy slide. Sorry about that. So our near-term work, again, is focused on improving safety and connectivity. You will see or hear predominant focus on the bike lanes themselves because that is the most visible addition. But there's a lot that goes into looking at a street, even just for quote bike projects. We're going to be going through and looking at all the signals, making sure that all of those have the required ADA, the APS buttons. I think most of them do in this case because they're relatively new intersections, but we'll be checking all of those. Taking a look at the operations based on new traffic volumes and new traffic patterns. Taking a look at some of the interactions between pedestrians and vehicles and seeing if there's a way to identify changes that will increase pedestrian safety in those intersections, a handful of those. So it will be a lot of things under the hood. And again, we look forward to talking about those as we move forward. Once again, second bullet, full reconstruction. Trees, landscaping, sidewalks, high quality materials, things that do not look and feel interim, things that feel permanent and high quality, as well as implementing a handful of our climate resiliency and green infrastructure commitments as a city. And then again, continue working with you folks and other organizations in the area, partners in BPDA, again, wrangling those developers and how they get to fit with future plans of the corridor. I'll leave this on here for a few minutes. Again, top line is just the general website that will lead you through all of the things that our group is working on, all the projects across the city. Each project street segment has a project website, information, opportunities to sign up for a mailing list. And then also several of them already have very specific individuals who you'll be able to contact who have been assigned to those projects already. So,
John, we have a couple of questions in the chat that
Right on.
pertain to parking. But
Yeah.
before we get to that, let me just ask you one thing. So you've emphasized that nothing has been designed so far. You're just at the start of this journey, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah.
What is the timeline for developing and finalizing the design?
So again,
Is it a matter of a few months or?
it is pretty much, it's over winter pretty much. I
Okay.
would say that we are looking to work on final design for spring-ish. Because again, the mayor is committed to doing this project amongst others for the next calendar year. And as we know, we are probably just today closing the construction season. So it is a calendar race a little bit. But again, that's why we're trying to come out early so that it doesn't seem like we're coming in at that 5-yard line.
Okay. And we have Randy and Peter, who both have questions about parking. You're welcome to ask them directly, but basically the question is, what is the impact of this likely to be on the parking along Albany Street, which is mostly meters?
Yeah. So again, the great part, as I said, about some parts of this corridor being relatively easy, the curb to curb or the dimension available in the street is pretty consistent. The parking regulations are also very consistent. When we took a look through the corridor, we walked it a couple times, taking a look at the curb regulations and what's going on, whether it's loading or resident parking and such. There are a lot of corner restrictions, we call them. So it's a couple of spaces or a solid space at an intersection that's already restricted so that the sight line is improved. People can understand where cars are turning and moving so that people aren't parked right up to a crosswalk. A lot of those are already in place. So by our estimates, it's going to be a pretty minimal impact to the parking as you see it right now. Layered onto that, not included in the slideshow, we are open and we're going to have conversations about how to change some of those regulations if that's the desire of the neighborhood, right? We know that there are a couple businesses on that northern side between the Concord and the Union Park area. So we want to talk to all of them and to all of you and see, are these curb regulations working to the best of its ability for you, right? So a handful of other projects we've gone through and changed every block. Some projects we've come in and changed one block and then the rest stay exactly as they are. So it's really in flux.
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, so I'm Randy Lathrop. I actually represent Jacobson Floral.
Okay.
Which is in Albany Street. They've been there since the 1960s.
Yep.
My concern is there's a lot of pushback and a lot of angst on what's happened on Tremont Street. And especially the business community did not really feel that the outreach was proper. I think it's extremely important because Albany Street is not your neighborhood street. It's not like Washington Street where you have a lot of residential there. It's a very different type of street.
Exactly.
I think it's very important for meetings to be happened in the morning where the businesses are able to attend. Right now you've got meters and you're talking about putting in a bike lane, and are we going to be putting it into, where you have a bike lane and then you have a parking lane, and then you actually end up drawing down the size of the street. Albany Street is a very busy street. You've got tractor trailers coming into my client and a lot, and he luckily enough has his, tractor trailers and businesses coming in on his property, but most of them don't have loading docks. And this is not your neighborhood street. This is not Tremont Street. This is not Columbus. This is Albany Street. It's also has, Tufts Medical on one end down there. And then you've got, the Bio Square, BU, all that. This has to be looked at very differently than what you've done in the past. I understand bikes are important, but businesses are really important for this street. And you've got a lot of institutions. I'm just concerned, one, to really think creatively about the street, to really involve all the property owners. What happened on Tremont Street, literally people, interns and stuff walked in and was basically talking to somebody who worked behind the counter. Hey, I'm here. And they go, yeah, whatever. So what happened was the owners of the businesses had no idea what was going on Tremont Street till it was too late, till all the design was done. The property owners never knew. And I don't want to see the same mistake done for Albany. Albany is very different. It has the expressway on one end. It's a very different nature of it. And I want it to work. It's probably the third most congested, they say the third most congested street at some time in the whole city. I think it really has to be done correctly. Are the meters staying? Are the meters going? We're going to have bike lanes. Is Albany Street the best way for bike lanes? If I look at Tremont Street today, I think the bike lane should have gone to Shawmut Ave instead of narrowing down all the road of the width. And the minute a UPS or delivery truck stops, the whole traffic's going to back up.
Right.
Albany Street is tricky, Matt, John, and I just think we really have to involve the property owners and the businesses there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's a very different character. This corridor hits nearly two on-ramps on each end, or a ramp on each end, and then as you said, the large industrial or kind of institutional uses that are on the south, and then the entire hospital campus on the north side there. Totally understand. I agree. It's a very different animal than Washington, very different than Washington, and very different than Tremont as well. A lot of the approach for Tremont was initiated because of the fatalities that were caused based on the type of roadway. So there's multiple lanes, and people were not yielding to pedestrians, and so several pedestrians were violently or were killed. I mean, there was a fatality. So I agree that this is a completely different piece because it's generally like one wide travel lane until we get to the ends, and then it turns into other things. So we are definitely looking at this in its own character and its own nature. As I talked about the kind of engagement or like what to expect, those mailings. So everyone on Tremont Street, and then I think 2 blocks in each direction, every single registered resident or tax I got a resident with the tax assessors. All of those individuals, all of those contacts were used for mailings. So I know that that there were definitely some people who dislike or who were very opposed to things. And so I can't totally understand or agree with the lack of communication, because I know how many instances of mailings and flyerings and conversations. I know that the business outreach was a little murky because we tried to do multiple instances of talking to each business to try and capture their needs and when they get deliveries and all kinds of things like that.
And that's what I don't want to see happen.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly the business outreach, I'm a member of the South End Business Alliance.
Excellent. So I'm gonna find your, I'm gonna keep your name down, write it down.
But you know,
Great.
clearly we wanted to go right. I
Yep.
mean, we're all for reconstruction in the right way, but we don't want to hurt the businesses at the end of the day.
Right.
You
And
know,
as you said, if there are businesses that do expect those larger vehicles, then we need to make sure that those spaces are available for those vehicles, and that they're not looking for space either on a side street, which has residences, or they're trying to make turns down areas that they can't fit, or they're again stopping in what might be the only available travel lane or the only available space. That is absolutely not what we're looking to do. We're looking to make sure that those curbs are working for the people who are adjacent to them. And if it means taking some metered spaces and making them loading spaces during certain times of the day, right, there's opportunities for making morning times loading and afternoons resident permit parking, and then
But let's talk about that. I don't want to,
absolutely no. I parking is going to be.
But loading is
80%,
very
so.
important, and loading
Yeah.
zones presently in the city of Boston, and I was talking to BTG about it today, don't work. Most loading
Okay.
zone commercial zones are taken by contractors that are
That's a
working-
commercial space, and I definitely will not introduce any of those. So sorry.
and that's
Nope,
a mess. And then
Nope.
you've got every person that has a commercial plate. goes-
absolutely. And they can park there for as long as they want, and they're.
And I understand
yeah,
bikes are important, but businesses is what ties the city together.
absolutely.
And we've got a lot of long-term businesses there, and the hard thing is when you do your mailings to the property owner, whoever's on record, which is an LLC, that business might not know because their landlord doesn't tell them about these meetings. I
Right.
suggest.
That was the walk-in kind of thing. I get
But
that there would have been the
to
staff
get-
at time though. Yeah.
But you got to get staff or somebody out there to get the correct. And
Yeah.
we're happy to help you through SEBA.
Awesome.
We want to do this right because if Albany Street fails, it's going to crunch the side streets. It's going to crunch Washington Street, which is over capacity for the Silver Line. Let's make this work. There's a lot of discussion about what could really make this work, extending the Silver Line into Newmarket, having a bus lane going down to Newmarket, I think is really important for this street. Silver Line, the day it opened, is over capacity today. So let's really make this a good thing and involve all the brains in the neighborhood.
Hey, John,
Excellent. Yes, sir.
a couple questions.
Go for it. Yeah.
You said that you envision that the impact on the number of parking spaces is probably small, relatively small or quite small. Is that because you're imagining, I know the design's not finalized yet, but you're imagining that most of the parking spaces will be bumped out away from the curb and become sort of a parking lane? Is that the likely?
Yeah, so we're not looking to remove the parking in its existence to put the bike lane itself. There is a dimension for the majority of the corridor. Again, once we get down to BMC and once we get near Mass Ave, it's a different animal. But the dimension in the roadway right now is an ambiguous 1 to 2 or 1 to 1.5 lanes. And then there were standard bike lanes that were striped but never replaced. So there is dimension for different things to flex and to be kind of reimagined in a creative way, as Randy was saying. But our anticipation is absolutely not to walk into this and just say all of the parking along the north curb is blank for blank. That's not the approach at all.
Okay, and to the extent spaces are lost, it would likely be because of considerations like having proper sight lines at corners and that sort of a thing.
Yeah, and like I said,
Okay.
we went through all of the side streets that are hitting the north side. Again, there are a few on the south side, so it's mostly the north side. Those sight lines have kind of already been tailored to those safety concerns.
Okay, you also raised the issue, and it is an issue, of the fact that currently the way the curb is signed in some places where there are not meters is historical artifacts essentially that no longer align with the actual uses. And so, for example, a real life example of that is in front of 591 Albany Street, which is the Affinity Dispensary.
Yep.
That's a loading zone, 24/7 loading zone. That dates back to when it was a flower market and they had big box trucks that have been gone for a couple of years. And the dispensary, with our support and no opposition that I know of in the neighborhood, has been trying for the last couple of years to get BTD to re-sign that to be short-term parking during the day for their customers and overnight parking for residents. So that's a perfect example of a place where spaces could be picked up if only the signage were rationalized.
Yeah.
And then likewise, farther up the street at Wareham Street, the residents there say that an excessive amount of the spaces are meters or commercial. And that dates back to an era when that part of the neighborhood was entirely commercial, essentially. And now there are a number of residential buildings.
Right.
And so perhaps this is an opportunity to rationalize and update the signage, the parking in a way
100%.
that benefits residents as well.
100%.
So
And again, to that point, and as Randy said, those commercial spaces, it was an approach that worked for a time that is slightly bygone, right? It was a time when we wanted to slap an entire block and allow vans or contractors to park and to be there in a certain area. Now we don't necessarily need all of that space to be standing vehicles for those contractors. We can isolate 2 or 3 spaces in an area, allow those plumbers and tile workers to come and park there for a minute and to help the residents, but the rest of the area could be loading, or it could be RPP, resident apartment parking, or it could be that that 30-minute limit so that people can go into a store, buy something, leave and drive away kind of thing. So,
Okay.
yes.
So I have 1 or 2 other questions or comments, but we're coming up on our 8:30, which is when we normally try to wrap things up for the good of everybody. So I just wanted to ask if anybody else has a question or a comment that they want to raise.
Yeah, I had a question.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. So John, I'm trying to understand. So how many feet across are each of the bike lanes?
So the bike lanes and then the buffer space, they do vary a little bit, but right now our public works requirements for them to sweep and plow in general maintenance and then in snow instance, we need about 7.5 feet for the vehicle to get down. And then there's the different objects or materials that we use to separate those spaces from either moving or standing vehicles. And those objects range in dimension from 4 inches to about 1 foot, depending on their permeability and hardiness. So
there'll be about 16 feet of the traffic lanes and parking lost to these bike lanes?
Well, there'll be about 16 feet of the roadway that's reallocated in a safe way for people to use it in a different mode. Yes.
So there'd be less room for cars and parking. Thank you.
Well, right now there's just 1 travel lane in that section, so there'll still be 1 travel lane.
Hey, John, Matt here, just quick comment.
Hey, Matt.
Do you have any thoughts on year-round street sweeping to aid snow plowing?
Yes, I know that there's conversations with Public Works about trying to revisit a lot of the operations that they do and how the network and where they send vehicles and the ordering of corridors to side streets and things like that. I know that there's also a pilot project that we have a contract for to better remove snow from small spaces, median punch throughs, corners, spaces, things like that, like ramps. Again, that's the other benefit of raising a side street crossing along a sidewalk, is that it is no longer a snow pile or it's no longer a pond or a puddle. But I don't actually have a very clear answer on the larger idea of operations reformation. I'm happy to put you in touch with our constituent relations officer here, Carla. Again, she can kind of shepherd through to Public Works. We are 1 cabinet, but they handle all of that type of day-to-day stuff.
No, it's just a concept. We have some amazing pictures from 2015 of our neighborhood under a solid amount of snow, but it's interesting every time it doesn't come up that street sweeping is really an essential process in the winter too, because it becomes snow plowing. But
right, and again, if we do pursue the kind of predicted direction for the design, that dimension that we're allocating against the curb is large enough for our standard vehicles to come through, remove the snow, either put it in that buffer space or a furnishing zone, or kind of put it into designated areas at corners where we're maintaining those sight lines. Most of the time, the snow piles can be maintained at a height that's lower than a car. So, but again, 2015, nightmare, right? We call it snowpocalypse for a reason. So I hear you.
John, I wanted to make 1 final comment, which is, if I understood you correctly, one of the things the city is contemplating is raising the sidewalks on the side streets as they feed into Albany Street.
Yep.
And I think that's a fantastic idea myself. I'm a runner, I live on East Brookline Street, so I have crossed those crosswalks thousands of times. And a perennial problem there and around the south end of the city is people who drive through the crosswalks because they're entirely focused on the exercise of merging onto Albany Street. They only look one direction. And, you know, it's not that they're reckless. It's easy to do, but
it's a priority.
I think that will dramatically reduce that.
Yeah. And again, it's not a silver bullet on this, because, you know, what it does is it focuses their priority on that instance where the crosswalk is, right? They have to slow down. They have to navigate that piece.
Forces people to slow down and actually look at the crosswalk as opposed to get one step ahead of themselves and be focused on merging.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that you're considering, or that's something that
We
almost
are
certainly will happen?
We're absolutely considering those. I can't commit to them because again, we're collecting the
Right,
engineering
right.
survey. So based on
Okay.
everything from drainage to utilities to weird areaways under sidewalks, we'll find all of that out once we start to dig
Okay.
through it.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to
Yeah, I would
say?
just say, David, hey, John, thanks for a good
Hey, John.
presentation. I think connecting the city's bike lanes is a good idea, makes it safer. I think taking into considerations for the business owners is really critical. I'm happy to help you on that alongside, I think Randy had mentioned she'd support from the CEBA side, but I think that's an important point. And I think that you guys are doing a good job taking into consideration all the elements with safety as a priority. Safety for pedestrians, safety for drivers, safety for everybody. That's why this stuff is really happening. And I think that's important for people to understand because there is data on accidents, deaths, and injuries.
Yep.
That's not made up. It exists. So you guys are doing a good job with that. But I would just reinforce that this is a good opportunity as you're putting out there to engage the business owners. It is a different street than a neighborhood street. And I'm happy to help you with that. I sent you my details separately.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyone else for John? Randy, are you still here? And if you are, if you want to wear your CEBA hat and give us a 30-second pitch for the holiday stroll before we
Sure.
adjourn.
Thank you. So quickly, we're very excited about the South End Holiday Stroll. It is, oh, great. There you go. It is going to be Saturday and Sunday, December 3rd and 4th, with a special shopping night on the 7th. This year is quite different how we approached it. We really wanted to approach it from a community engagement point of view. So for instance, the Holy Cross Cathedral is going to be doing a petting zoo. They're going to sell flowers and some wreaths. They're going to have a concert actually in their church. We're going to have South End Soccer selling, hot cocoa. We promoted the Blackstone Franklin tree and wreath sale. So we're very excited. We have 2 pop-up stores. One at the former Webster Bank and one at the Cathedral Gym that's going to be open on Saturday. And this provides artists and business owners in the South End who don't have a storefront to sell their products. So the list goes on, but what we're excited about is making this more of a community event. And the exciting part is that the pop-up store at the Webster Bank is already sold out. But if you want to have show interest in opening something up at the gym, please fill out the application. It's been extended to the 25th of November. And one of the biggest things is I got 2 electronic billboards for free on the I-93, one at the Carpenters Union and one at Ink Block that's going to be promoting the holiday stroll. So we really hope that a lot of people will come in, support our retailers, our businesses, our restaurants. A lot of the restaurants are doing well, but our businesses are still hurt from COVID. So we really encourage people to, buy local, support local, and come out that weekend.
Great. The Saturday is the same day as our tree sale. So
Yep,
hopefully
which
there's
is perfect. And I know we're
synergy. Good.
And we're coordinating because the mayor's office trolley tours on that
Yep.
day, 5:30 at Blackstone. So the whole idea is to really celebrate the entire South End on that weekend.
Great. Okay.
Well, thank you, David, for allowing me to do my little pitch.
Of course. Well, thank you. We're looking forward to it. Okay. So I'll just say one more thing before we adjourn, and this will just be brief, which is that we made a decision that we're going to revert to our former practice of having socials every other month during the months that we don't have meetings like this. And we've had, I think already this year, 2 or 3, and they've all been really fun and well attended. And we've had at least a few new faces every time, which is fantastic. So we'll do the next one sometime in December. We'll send out an email to our members saying when, we'll post it on Facebook, etc. So please, if you can, come to that. And likewise, we'd hope to see you at our tree sale on Saturday, December 3rd. So with that, I say thank you to everybody and good night and see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.